Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a new episode of Real Business Roundtable. Today, we're going to talk about your value. We're going to talk about how, during a sales pitch, during a conversation, how to pitch and sell your value. There's so many different ways to do this, and we do it every single day, talking about our value, bringing our value to the table, no matter what it is. It's a prospect, it's a partnership, it's a business decision, whatever it is. Bring your value. How do you bring your value? And there's certain ways to do that, and that's what we're going to talk about today.
And I do want to make a quick public service announcement.
Oh, no.
Is that someone at Starbucks is showing me extra creativity. I've noticed my cups come with interesting artwork. Today is some tons of little flowers. I didn't request this. My name isn't Flower.
You know what's kind of wild? That's kind of genius.
Yeah, like it was, they wrote some other things. I don't know. One of them said love going around it. And there's been artwork on my cups. I don't know who's doing it, which one of the baristas is doing it, but thank you.
That is low-key genius, honestly, because if you could have a plastic cup that has, let's say, for example, you like that. You're like, oh, this makes me feel nice and happy and fuzzy inside. You get a cup that has that same design next time, but what if there's a one-off cup? It has a star on it. Oh, eBay.
Yeah.
I have a one-of-one Starbucks plastic cup because you reuse those all the time.
And speaking of value, because something is more scarce, it has more value. So we are talking about making sure that in the sales process or in business, you are always presenting the value you'll bring to the table. Now, sometimes clients will need proof. Did you ever hear of that proof of work? They want to say, hey, yeah, you can talk all day. What did you do? Who did you do it for? Let me talk to them. Let me email them. So when you are presenting value, like I can do this, it requires someone to trust you and to move forward with you and make a commitment before it's even done, right? So in these types of situations, there is obviously a little bit of skepticism, and a good positive reputation can add to that and help you present your value.
Now, I want to talk about doing it in a little bit of a different way, kind of like the practice we did or the trial that we did before. So I want to try to figure out the best way to word this.
Case studies are a big way to present value.
Case studies are a huge way to show value. Listen, I'm on days that I'm making calls, talking to people all day long, cold calling, whatever you want to call it. The first thing I always do is talk about my case studies. If they don't believe it, I say, okay, you can call him yourself. And they usually do. And they usually call me back the day later and say, give me the paper, I want to sign. So I want to talk about kind of like the thing I was doing before. So there's ways that you can show your value other than just kind of saying it in case studies and stuff like that. For example, if we're talking about, I'm talking about selling you something, and I'm saying it's $1,000 a week, right? The first thing that the person's gonna think is I don't want to spend $1,000 a week. It's a lot of money. It's $1,000 more than I'm spending right now. But then I'll say, okay, I'll take a piece of everything that I help you sell, right? If I help you sell 1,000 of these within the next week, within the next month, I want to take a piece of that. Now that percentage, as long as you position it right, is going to be a lot more than $1,000. And you help them understand that. You're showing your value. I'm confident that I can bring 1,000 people to your store based off of videos that I make, based off of the things that I do digitally, based off of whatever. I know for a fact I can do that, and I'm showing that to you in this meeting. Now, what is it? Let's say that the end residual or the end amount that they would pay me if I took a piece of it, the royalties, would be $10,000, or let's say $5,000 or whatever. They're not going to want to take that risk and spend the extra $4,000 to $9,000 in residual, or not in residual, in royalties. They're going to want to say, you know what? $1,000 does sound a little bit better than $10,000. I showed my value by upping their risk. Me being confident, I'm talking over here, very confident I can do this for you. Do you want me to take a risk and trust your word and you pay me $10,000 next month? Or do you want to take my word, risk the $1,000 and show that I can prove my value. So that's a very interesting way of getting someone to almost up their risk. What is that called when it's like
leveraging? So the issue when sometimes you present something and you're like, hey, it's going to be $1,000 a week or $1,000 a month, or you can give me a percentage of the performance. Let's just say, right? Sometimes you run into a situation and you have to lay these possibilities out when you get somebody like that. When they're trying to they're trying to lower their risk and they're like, hey, well, if you're so good, I'll give you a percentage. Right? Sounds good at face value. But sometimes you deal with dishonest folk that will manufacture every reason to not pay you.
Well, at the end of the day, you don't want to do that.
No. I'm going to give you an example. So you work with somebody, blah, blah, blah. And then one time we had this guy, he was like, yeah, the shade of blue is off on the video. And I said, You've done well. Yeah, but the shade of blue is off. What does that have to do with the price of tea in China? Then we find out he's reusing our videos, splicing them, renaming them, whatever, going past and beyond what we agreed to. It's a whole shit show. I'm just trying to say, when people do that, you got to be careful.
Of course.
You got to be careful with that stuff. So,
yeah,
it can turn into a big, well, what about this and what about that and that and this, and it's yeah. You gotta when you are presenting your value, you have to show that you are confident that you can deliver, right? And you have to show examples. When you show examples, anybody with a brain, which is the soft, squishy thing in your head, that thing can process information, right? And you see proof of work, proof of capability, and then you move forward.
Absolutely.
This music he's playing on the headphones is making it very smooth. This is a very smooth episode. I didn't trim my beard this week. Another way to present value is to not only talk about what you can deliver, but talk about as a whole what would it cost them to try to replicate what you're doing? So maybe there's an element of savings there. Get into the percentage of the growth that they'll see. So the percentage that they invest and the yield that they'll see from it, that will add an element of logic to their decision. Even though most decisions are made emotionally, you want to paint that picture of what you'll do for them and what progress you'll bring to the table and improvements. But you also have to kind of lay it out in a more logical sense too, so that you can kind of see, well, if I would have tried to do this myself and I would have to hire this person and train them, but I got these other guys that are a well-oiled machine that know how to do this stuff, and this isn't their first rodeo, so there's less risk. When you're presenting value, you have to think again, like we said before, perspective. Have the perspective, put yourself in their shoes, and you can kind of almost like telepathically connect with what they're thinking. If you speak and present your value with what they're thinking and feeling and what's on their mind, if you think with that and you present with that, keeping that into consideration, you're more likely to have a successful conversation when presenting value. Think about what makes them tick, what would shift their decision, what would allow them to make the best decision possible.
Yeah, the same thing. I mean, you have to think carefully on the service you provide and how you position it around your service, because when you're pitching your service, it's a solution of some sort, right? Let's say you're running ads. Let's say you're running ads for people for construction companies or whatever it may be. You have to understand what is the national average of cost per acquisition. What is the the market average for, cost per lead? What are those things? What have you done that has brought that down? that at the end of the day is money saved, even if they're spending it with you. That's your value. You're saving the money on the end. We've talked with people who had a CPL of $1,200 for like what? And then the average is around $400-500. We got the account because you should not be spending $1,200 per lead at all. You shouldn't be.
No.
And there's different things that you can do, processes you can take, and strategies that you can adapt to that we can provide that will help you lower that down a lot. That's our value. That's what we're going to provide. And you're going to pay us, and you're still going to be saving money at the end of the day.
And value can be ease of implementation, the level of confidence to go into something with someone. It could be anything. It could be someone that's redoing your floor. You look at his portfolio, and he's installing these beautiful floors, like flawless, versus a guy that's, I can do it, and you don't see any samples of his work. You're, The less, the more likely that's for the customer. You want very less, Because if you throw them with confidence, and you present what you do in your craft, and you show them, not only say to them, they have no choice but to choose you because you presented your case the best way you could, and you presented your value. Another thing that we want to talk about when you're presenting value is future expectations. Mm-hmm. So let's say someone installs something. What is the warranty? How long is this going to hold up? Is it going to warp? Is it going to defect? Is there a manufacturer's warranty for the materials that this person's using? Or let's just say somebody builds an app with a development company. Okay, let's say something breaks. Who's going to fix it? What is it going to cost me per hour to fix? Look at the future of whatever it is you're trying to get done. Now, both the potential customer and the person presenting the value, they both need to go back and forth and reconfirm, ask the question, present the value, set the assurances for the future that things are going to be okay. People like peace of mind.
Yeah.
People like to know, okay, I'm not going to have to deal with any bullshit in a year, or something's falling apart, or something's breaking. Do you ever run into that? You buy something, say it was cheap, falls apart. These are the things that are super important. So when you're presenting your value, overall value is I don't care what anyone says, it's connected to the lifetime expectancy of that item or the service or the product. What's this? How long is this going to last? Will I need it again? How often will I use it? Is this a can opener? Is it going to sit in my drawer and I'm going to open up cans of soup? Is it going to be durable? What's the durability? How long is it going to last? That is a piece of value because the customer is not going to have to keep replacing it, which will ultimately cost them more money down the road. So it's kind of like future thinking, like, hey, this is a really durable product. This will withstand 1,200,083 cans of fire roasted tomatoes.
The easiest, simplest, and cheapest form of presentation of value is confidence. And that's a huge, honestly, aside from everything else, if it's intentional, non-intentional, if it's obvious or not obvious to the prospect, confidence is the one thing that I notice you get the most compliments on and you gain the most trust with. It's confidence and passion. Those are two things. And experience, we've talked about experience with restaurants, with a bunch of different stuff. Experience is huge. The initial experience, if you show that you're confident, you're passionate, and you have all these other added value things, those two things alone will land you big accounts, and it'll also help you show your value incredibly well. Those two things, passion and confidence, those are two things that anyone can do. Anyone can, anyone can do.
One way to assure that you're going in the right direction when presenting your value is to always think in your head, am I making myself clear to the person on the receiving end? And am I hitting upon bullet points or hot buttons that would be important to them? What would make them feel better about working with you or using your product or using your service? What would shift that? Okay. And people like value. They like, okay, this might make sense. We've had situations where people were talking to us about growing their business, and then they say, wow, this one little facet that you cover, I'm paying one guy to do it, X amount of dollars per year, but you do it as a part of your program. And that's an example of value, is where people say, well, I'm currently spending money on this vendor and that software and this and that and that and that. You offer all of these features and functionalities for a fraction of collectively of what I'm spending. That's another way. You know, you want to present, okay, as a whole, this is going to cost you a fortune to try to do on your own. But if you were to hire someone that knows what they're doing, streamlined process, super easy, you know, they know what they're doing, it's going to be less of a headache. That's another thing, is like when you're shopping around and you're looking around, sometimes people make the big mistake of shopping on price. And when you shop on price, you get what you pay for. I don't care what industry it is. Being the cheapest guy in town or buying the cheapest version is not in your best interest. It is not. I don't care what anybody says. Buying the cheapest version of almost anything means you're getting lesser of a return or less of a lifespan of that product or service, less of a benefit. We all know. We go shop for a variety of different products, and we all know that the stuff at the discount store is going to break in a week. I just needed to use it once. Okay, it was one of those cheap metal screwdrivers, like the screwdrivers made out of cheap metal, and it strips, and it's. But it cost you $1. Okay, who cares? Versus nice Craftsman, DeWalt tools, all the good brands that are going to last, that are made out of good metals and alloys, and they're tough and they can take a beating, and you can use those tools over and over and over again. That is value. Mm-hmm. Big difference. So keep that in mind when you are presenting your offering is value.
Thank you so much for joining us today on Real Business Roundtable. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please like, subscribe, turn on post notifications to get notified every single time we post an episode. Check us out on Instagram for clips, updates, and more. Peace out. See you next time. I'm going to go take a nap.